All right, everyone, so welcome. Wednesday or Thursday, depending where you are. Today we're doing the last episode of our village building series. Should be a lot of fun. You can kind of tell on the title image here that if you look on the left side, this is what we made in the last episode. We added a lot of our shadows. We established a light source, and we made sure the shadows were nice and dark to create some serious contrasts. Contrasts are what create depth. So then we'll move over to the right side and you'll notice that I kind of made these interiors. Now here's the thing, we're obviously not going to have enough time to make the interiors for every single one of these. So what we'll do is I'm going to have you go ahead and decide which one of these buildings we want to do the interior, exterior, all the details, everything. We're going to add all of it. So you go ahead and decide in the chat, take a look at the text, see what each building is. Go ahead and let me know in the chat which one you want me to make. And here's the thing, I'll take you through the process on how I approach putting interiors in all my buildings, and that process will apply to every single one of these buildings. So by watching one building, you will see how I proceed with every other building. What I don't finish in the stream here will all be in a time lapse into separate videos with each individual building in a time lapse with text or audio, so that way you still see how I do the other buildings. Don't want to do you wrong, but we'll make sure that we'll fit that into short content as well, so that way you don't have to sit through an hour and a half stream or 4.5 hour stream, because interiors can be quite time consuming. So let me know. I got herbalist and watermill. I'm fine with either one of those. If we can get one done quicker than the other, we're only going to do ground floor, so that means that we'll probably get a lot more done. So I do like the herbalist and the watermill. That looks nice. Our herbalist is right here, and then just right across from that is where our watermill is. Watermill from Heyday 87. All right, so 2 on the watermill. Here we go. Or watermill. That's 3 on watermill. I think watermill makes the most sense, and I can understand why a lot of people might want that because of the whole mechanisms, like the grindstone, the wheel, and the mechanisms, and then what do I put to fill in the details? That makes total sense. We might be able to do 2 because a windmill will not have a whole lot of rooms. It's going to be a very large open space. We're probably only going to have a little bit of interior for where the house is. So why don't we do both? We'll do the watermill and the herbalist. If it goes over an hour, that's no problem. The rest will be time lapsed. I think that should work. So we'll start with the watermill first. Thanks everyone for sharing your thoughts on what we should do. Appreciate that. Let me just real quick go over the process so that way you can see like how I approach this. And then when you go to do yours, you can follow the same process and know that a process doesn't have to be locked in 100%. You can go ahead and change steps. Maybe you didn't finish step 2. You can always go back to it. Don't worry about following this precisely. Just follow the steps as they make sense to you. Skip some. If necessary, you'll get back to it. So just make sure that it's kind of free flowing a little bit. It's whatever works best for your workflow. But what I always do is I'm going to create the outer walls first. The reason why is because outer walls are going to define the space in which your players are going to be walking in the interior. After you've added the outer walls, you'll want to create the inner walls. That's going to separate all the various rooms, of course. After that, you're going to decide room assignment. Room assignment is going to be closely tied in with where a lot of your doors are, like your entrances, your exits. A lot of that room assignment will be assigned by that. That's going to be important. We're also going to do our windows or already mentioned windows and doors, but we'll also go with the interior decorating part. That's going to be like adding your largest stamps first, because you need to know how much space your players need to walk around. If you start with all the small stamps and then you add a larger one later, you've run out of room. So you want to put the largest stamps first to fill up the space. This gives you a sense of how your players can maneuver and walk around. You're going to add details. All of that is determined by room assignment. Whatever a room is, like if it's a bedroom, a bathroom, that's going to tell you all you need to know about your details on top of storytelling, whatever takes place within that room. And then finally, we'll also do light and shadows. So this will take a little bit of time. When it comes to light and shadows, I'll probably just do one of the buildings and not both. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. I'll go ahead and hide the process here. The first thing that you're going to do is just open up your map when you have all the buildings here and everything. You're going to create a whole new layer. So I'm going to go ahead and select this night filter here and go add layer. I'm going to go to object layer. Here it is up here. I'm going to rename this to walls. Now, walls is kind of a general term because there's also going to be a couple other things that are going to be in the wall layer. That's also going to be things like chimneys and things like that. And if you notice, I've already got a lot of my chimneys built in. As I was working on prepping for this stream, I discovered a little mistake that I made. It's actually wiser to put the chimneys on last instead of putting them on first, because I did find some little bit of a challenge there. I made it work, but I did have to move at least 2 or 3 chimneys. So I realized a mistake that I made there. I don't want you to go through that same one. So my recommendation is maybe save your chimneys for last, because, you know, the chimney is tied into the interior quite a bit. So we're going to set that up. After you set up walls, you're going to add another object layer, and you're going to call it floor. This is going to be important because your chimney would be on your walls. At the high, it's higher up, the walls are higher up. Everything that's on the floor, that's going to be stairs, thresholds for your doors. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be on your floor. So you want to have walls be a layer above and the floor below. I'll even make sure that this red sky texture, I'll kind of put that above as well. Let me move all this other process stuff out of the way. Here we go, get the title up. I'm just doing some quick adjustments here. There we go, that looks good. Make sure that red sky filter is above, so that way even the interiors and the floor will also have that. So what I'll do next here is I'll go over my shape tool. And since we're gonna do the water mill first, you'll go to the shape tool. You have a couple options here. You can use the shape tool with a polygon right here like this. It's already set to 5. That's one approach, like this, and then you can kind of adjust it as needed, or you can just do it by hand by using a shape and then using the pen, and you can just start going like this. If you feel that's easier, it's going to make the walls a little bit more wobbly and they're not going to be as perfectly symmetrical, but I actually think that's a good thing, because over time buildings do warp, right? Especially if it's made of wood, that it warps, it changes over time, and I think that's okay. Don't make each side of the wall perfect. This is going to add a little bit of wear, a bit of a tear to it, making it look a little bit more realistic and going more into the fantasy as well. So after that, I'll probably want to choose a stamp. So I'll just go ahead and select this one. I have that there. I'll go into the catalog. I'm going to choose what kind of stamp that I want to use. I think a stone foundation makes the most sense. It is a watermill, so to kind of make sure that it's sturdy, we're going to add some kind of stone foundation. If we want, we can also add a wood wall on top of that as well. So let me just go into Core 2.0. I'm just going to find the easiest one that we can use. This one right here, this stone wall, will work great. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead. I see that I'm using the same one here like this, and I think I desaturated that, so I'm going to go ahead and, just to stay with continuity here, I'll desaturate this. There we go. This is going to represent that stone foundation. Now, something that's important here, don't go the full size of the roof. So you notice how my walls are not the exact same size as the roof. It's actually a little bit smaller. That's what's called your eaves, or what you could also call overhang. There's usually a little bit of overhang so that rain can fall off those eaves and then go down into the gutter or off the building itself. So it's not putting a lot of water weight on the roof, putting less strain on it. So my suggestion is, very rarely would you actually have the outer walls be as big as the roof itself. The roof is larger because of those eaves or that overhang. That's going to be super important. What you'll do after that, if you've chosen like the size of the stone, the scale for the stroke, you'll also choose a fill of some kind. Don't recommend a color. We'll probably just use a base stone texture. There's a stone wall or stone foundation, so we should also maybe follow that same logic of having a stone ground as well as that foundation. So we'll go ahead and try to find the 2.0. Just type in stone 2.0, see if I can find that here. Let's see here. We're getting close. I do like some of these too, this rocky ground. I usually use a lot of the same ones, this stone floor. So we'll go ahead and use that. We're going to, of course, change the scale. Whenever you're changing a scale of a stroke, you also need to keep in mind the scale of the texture. I'm also going to bring the brightness down a little bit. This is important. By bringing the brightness down, oopsie, I'm doing the wrong one here. Let's go down to here, tweak colors. By bringing the brightness down on the interior texture, what that does is it causes the walls to pop out. So we're using contrast to create depth. You see how the brighter it gets, the less contrast it creates between the wall and the floor to create that sense of depth. But as soon as I start bringing the brightness down, where the floor is darker than the wall, that creates this immediate contrast, allowing you to create depth right away. So that's going to be helpful. I'll also adjust some of the shadows as well. I'm going to create ambient occlusion by just bringing the shadow in, bringing the intensity up like this. Really want to get those shadows really deep. There we go. So now it really shows that. That looks good. And I'll go ahead and resize it a little bit just to kind of make sure that it fits. And remember, don't make it too big. You want those eaves and overhang. And then the next step, we want to create this other part of the structure right here. This looks like some kind of entrance maybe right here. And we might want to consider putting an entrance right here and right here. So we'll see. I see one already sticks out, but we might want to consider another one that goes straight to the mill instead of having to go through the residence. Because I think this little pop-out section right here is a residence, while this is the mill itself. I also see a little roof right here for the housing of the mechanism right here. So we'll probably put some gears and some housing stuff right there. Let's go ahead and do that first. When you're trying to merge shapes together, my recommendation is to switch it over to preview. So if I go to shape here and I choose this, I recommend using preview instead of add right away. Go preview. And what preview will do is it will allow you to adjust and line everything up properly so that way you're not accidentally prematurely saying add and then it goes it the wrong way. So doing this will be really helpful. Little quick tip on rotation. If you grab that circular dot right here and you're close to it, you're not going to be able to create you're not going to have nearly as much control on rotation. But the further that you go away, you're going to have a lot more control over single digit changes in your rotation. So kind of a cool trick. The farther you get, the easier it is for those kind of smaller degrees. Just kind of a helpful tip there. Once you feel like it's been lined up kind of properly there, then you can just go add, and it should add to that space right there. That looks good. And then I can just use that same piece right here. I'll adjust like this. We're going to create the housing for this. I'm probably even going to make the foundations a little bit, have the walls be a little bit thinner. They're a little thick. I think right about there looks good. That looks correct. And then we'll also do another one more right here like this with a little bit of an entrance. And I'm not going to add very much, just a little bit. This should create some unique shapes within the build. Let me just take a step back and look at it real quick. Yep, that looks good. The only issue that I see is that the walls are probably a little thick. I bring them size down a little bit more. I think that looks about right. That looks good. And of course, if you want, you can show the stone foundation because the whole building is not going to be made of stone. It's just the first several feet, the foundation above ground that's going to be made of stone. So the next trick is you might want to consider adding maybe a wood texture as well around the wall. So turn off your fill. You're going to copy and paste what you just made. Put this right on top. Make sure to just line it right up. And then what I'll do is I'll go to my stone wall. I'm going to go to wood and just choose my wood like this. And you'll notice that there's also a wood texture as well. There's also stamps. There's also some strokes that have both of these built in. Personally, I don't like to always use that because sometimes I want to change the darkness of the stone part and the wood part simultaneously, like separate from each other. Otherwise, you'll have less control over hue and brightness, darkness, things like that when you have that one stroke that has both. So, of course, as always, because you notice that I'm using a light stone texture here, and you notice that my wood is also made of a lighter color, let's use contrast again to make them pop out. So I'll bring the brightness down on the wood section like this, and that will cause those to really pop out. And I'll also go in and add a little bit of a shadow as well. Make sure that it's small enough, like this. There we go. Let's go ahead and bring the intensity up. There we go. And in fact, I think I might even go with lighter. I might have misspoken there. Let's just check. What do you guys think? I think if you add that hard shadow there, I think that actually works okay. So let me know what you think is better, the darker or the brighter. I think the brighter, for contrast's sake, probably just works better. We can go back and like tweak the shadows to make sure that they're really fitting in there. Let me just see here. That looks good. All right. The next step I would do is to put on like caps on each kind of corner. I think that is just a nice touch. Just getting, yeah, brighter. I think so too, Typher Zero. I agree. So let's go ahead and we'll just type in Core 2.0 under Fantasy Battle Maps, Core 2.0. And I do believe there are these like wooden, what are they called here? They're called wooden pillars. These are going to work great. We're going to go up a couple layers like this. And then what I'll end up doing is I'm going to size it to where it's big enough to where it sticks out. That's going to be one step. And then I'm also going to adjust the shadow so that that way it shows like this pillar really pops out. So I'll bring the intensity up. I can also bring the brightness up a little bit more so that it pops out. We'll adjust more of the shadow here. We'll go this way. There we go. That really pop out. Notice that it's bigger than the wood, but not bigger than the stone beneath. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll start with your basic corners first. Like you've already got some nice 90-degree angles here or similar to. So just go ahead and fill in those ones first. Like this one right here. These are easy. These ones are easy. Start there first. Just copy and paste. That way you can get the same dimensions with the shadows and the brightness and all the settings. Like this. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. Put another one right here like this. That looks good. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll go ahead and add some here. It's a little bit more complicated when you get into these angles that are not 90s because then it's kind of hard to decide which way. I think circular pillars would probably work a little bit better on corners like that. But I'll go ahead and put them down so you can just see what I mean by that. Like when I put this here, it looks a little odd. Like, does it go against that angle? Does it go against this one? Do I split it in the middle? And also, sometimes it's nice to have some asymmetry. Instead of having a pillar on every single joint and having some there and some not, it creates contrast. And so I think that can be more interesting. That's really your choice on which one that you think's best. From there, what I'll end up doing is I'll go ahead and start creating access. I've kind of created all my outer walls. I've just established my space in which the players can move around. Then the next step is I want to go over to my shapes and then go over to what's called the portals. It's this last one at the bottom down here. And then what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and use the portal here. Now the portals are huge. They're based on the size of the grid. So if I go over to my grid here, let me just see which ones we got here. Let's go ahead and remove this grid. I'll go ahead and delete that grid. We'll see what this grid is based off of. Let me go here. It's huge. Let's go ahead and bring the number of columns down. I think I'll just go to reset. 40. Let's go with maybe 60. Let's try that. Let me see what it is. I think about there looks about right. If you look carefully there. So I'll go ahead and add a portal there. I'll add a portal right here. And we might want to also remove, we might have to go back and remove some of these stairs because we're going to apply that to our floor layer later. Something I also want to mention that's super important, make sure that you grab that one shape that has the stone texture we used for our foundation. Open that up right away. Just go ahead and open it up. Go to your stone floor, scroll down, look for stone floor here, and you're going to want to go into these advanced settings and bring the layer offset down quite a bit. This is going to be important because you want things on the floor layer to be able to be above the floor itself, right? So pushing the floor layer down quite a bit is going to be really helpful. And if you're wondering, well, what happens if I want rooms to have, some rooms to have wood floor and some rooms to have stone? I'm going to show you how to do that. And this is going to be an important step, is making sure that the layer offset is down quite a bit. So make sure that layer offset is down. It's on -7. That's great. So, and I'll go ahead and continue. I'll go ahead and grab this stone wall shape and then start applying some of my shapes here like this. If you look carefully now, I have my entrances. We're going to have to make some changes as we go about stairs and stuff because you'll notice that the roof is going through that. Don't worry, I'll show you how to fix that. But let's just get our basics set up here. This looks good. We also need to create some kind of opening for the main shaft that's going to be attached to the wheel. And then it's going to be attached to further gears that are going to be moving the millstone. So we want to create our entrances and exits for that as well. So there used to be some way for that to work. We'll go in here. We'll start right here, create that first one. That looks good. And then I'll go to this shape right here and do it again. Right here. And now we have a clear opening for the mechanism to open up. And we also have a nice roof to shield the internal mechanisms from the weather, from the wheel pushing all the water and making a mess here. So we have that wheelhouse mechanism here. That's good. Okay, once you've kind of done that, then I would recommend we move on to that next step, which is kind of doing the interior. We'll do the entrances and exits, and then we'll go ahead and do rooms. Can you explain how shadows of the buildings work? That's the previous episode, Beastmaster. It should be episode either 6 or 7. Go to the YouTube channel, go look for that one. It'll show you the shadows right in there, and it'll show you everything you need to know. Otherwise, you'll have to wait until the end of the stream when I get into light and shadows. Sorry about that, but if you missed out, don't worry. It's totally there for you. Explain everything in detail. Okay. Boy, I see some errors right here with these these things right here covering these trees. Oops. We'll come back to that in a little bit. All right, so let's start in here first. I'm going to go back to my finished buildings layer, open up the group. I'll just go ahead and just kind of copy and paste, kind of just delete that. That looks good. And then I'll go back up to my walls or go to my floor section real quick. Just go ahead and copy and paste like this. We'll go ahead and put that there. So I have a nice little stair right there. And I'll just go ahead and have it cover up the entire roof so that way you can still see it. So you'll be able to walk through. And that works good. If you want, you can also make the steps made of wood. It is a line shape. So if I want, I can go in and type in stair, and you'll notice that there is also stone stairs. We could use this stone brick right here. We could use that one. So I can just do that too. If I wanted to, there's a bunch of other ones in here as well. We can look them up. There's this stone stair right here for our cave. Just desaturate it so that it matches the same grayness as the floor. So you have options on what you can do there. So whichever one you feel is best. I would also recommend putting the stairs to be a little bit darker. And the reason why you want them darker is because you want to show that the stairs are going down. And again, you're going to use contrast to show that the stairs are darker than the floor itself to make it clear that that is a further down. It's descending down or going up. So kind of a helpful kind of trick there. We'll use those stairs for now, but really we could use any one. Honestly, I think we'll use the wooden ones for this one because I'm going to have this texture on the floor be made of wood, and I'll show you how to do that. And then this other one, copy and paste, can be made of stone because it's going to go into the windmill section, and it actually has a stone floor. So I'll do both. So there's your access points. Remember, this small section right here is where the millwright or where the person who runs the mill lives, in this small space right here. While this space right here is going to be where the whole mechanism is. The next step now is to go ahead and create your interior walls. So I'll go over to walls right here. And this is really cool. What we can do is you don't need to have a stone foundation that's right here to separate this. It could be made of wood. And the reason why is because it might not have a first and a second floor. You only really need the stone foundation to be as big as how many floors you have. You're going to have a lot more foundation when you have multiple floors. And in this episode, we're not doing any other floors except for the ground floor. Oh, there is one thing I forgot to do too. I really want to put those caps right here like this as well. I'll go ahead and line them up. Copy, paste. There we go. I try to put my caps all along my edges, all along where my entrances and exits are. So right here, of course, copy paste this one right here. There we go. All right. So with the internal walls, we'll go ahead and just show that we have some contrast. Internal walls will be made of wood instead of stone. I think that will look really nice. So I'll just go like this with the line tool. I'm going to choose that same wooden texture that I use. I'm going to go ahead and create a wall right here that's going to go ahead and separate this little space right here. After you've added that wall segment, then you'll go and then add the entrance or exit so we can decide where this is. This is kind of an interesting one. When you have a small room, this is such a small room right here, where you decide to put the door can be really important. So if you put it in the center like this, look how much space you have on either side to fit things like a chimney, a bed, a desk. If you move the door over all the way to one side, you allow for a lot more room for things to fit maybe into this space right here. So doors actually play a role. And the way that I decide where the door is, what the room is, because it's a bedroom, it's probably only going to need some key things like a bed and maybe a desk to keep track of notes. And then maybe a fireplace to stay warm. And that's about it. So I'll go ahead and put the door right here like this. Of course, I'll also throw in the caps for the door. like this. I'll go ahead and push this way. We'll make the door a little bit thinner there. So now we have that. And I also want to make this floor made out of wood. Not complicated. I'll go back to shapes. Go ahead and choose your pen for your shapes. You're going to go ahead and turn your stroke off, turn your merge shape off, then choose fill. Jump over to stroke, and we're going to go ahead and choose a wood texture of our choice. I'll go ahead and put the names on so that I can kind of see which ones are maybe our 2.0 ones. Let's take a look here. Because it's a water mill, we don't need a fancy wood texture. So why don't we just go with your basic wood. Let me see if I can find maybe a Core 2.0 one that's been published here. Let's just go ahead and use this one right here. Core 2.0, perfect. And then what I'll do is don't worry about what layer it's on quite yet. We're just going to go ahead and go like this, 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 and this. I'm going to each corner. I'm going to go and press enter and then go add. And then you'll notice that I have those stairs there. I can change the scale. I don't have to paint every time. Can control everything now. I can change the scale. I can go into advanced options and I can kind of change the rotation, whichever rotation I want it to be in, like this. I'll go ahead and move it this way. I think the wood is probably a little too thick, so we'll go ahead and bring the scale down a little bit more. I'll also bring it down a couple layers. There we go. Oopsie, one layer up. That looks good. This looks good. And then I'll go ahead and make adjustments to that floor to match. I'll go ahead and bring that brightness down like this. Make sure to make it just a slightly bit brighter than the stairs itself, so that way it's clear descension, like going down the stairs, showing if there's some depth there. So just make sure that floor is just a little bit brighter or noticeably brighter than the stair. That will be helpful. The next step is you want to create some kind of what's called a threshold. Look at the transition between this texture and this texture right here. It looks all weird. So I'll show you how to fix that. First, I'll go ahead and fix the rotation to where it kind of fits nicely. I think that looks right. And then I'll create what's called a threshold. That's usually like the base of a door where you walk over. And what I'll do is I'll just use this basic rustic frame like this. I'll go across like this. I'm going to turn off my shadow. The threshold is not a giant step. It doesn't have the depth that a wall has. So go ahead and turn off your shadow. That won't be necessary. Then the next step is just to bring the brightness down, and you can make it darker than the floor itself or make it as bright as the floor. I usually make it just a little bit darker just so that it kind of creates some contrast there, so it's clear that there is a threshold going from this room to that room in between the door, so that way you can have multiple textures in a build instead of having to do just one texture. So that's why I had you go down all the way down to layer 8 for the shape fill, so that way you had room to populate. So that's super important. Kind of keep that in mind there. So I think overall this looks good here. We've kind of done that part. I'll go ahead and make my way in. I'll start with the smallest room first. I'll make my way here. One of the first things I want to do is maybe turn off walls and just take a look kind of where everything kind of is. Is there any? There is no fireplace here, so I think we can probably add one. I think that would be a good choice here. We don't need to add a whole lot, so I think a fireplace would look good right here. We'll put a bed right here, and then we can also maybe put in like a small like chair or bench of some kind. Remember, it's just a very small residence, but I think we want them to stay warm, so we'll go ahead and add that stuff. We'll stay at walls here and choose a chimney. Don't want that mill person to get freezing cold. We're not going to use the double. It's just going to be a small, like a singular. I'll go ahead and desaturate so that it kind of fits with the same thing. I'll bring the brightness up and bring the contrast down. Kind of matches that. I'll go ahead and put the chimney here like this, about this size. Looks about good. Right here, I think this is a good place to kind of put it right here. This looks good. Make sure the scale is right. And the way that I can do that is just kind of look at other chimneys on the map. There we go. Now I'm kind of get a closer bit of the scale. Yep, that looks great. Perfect. Then I'll go ahead and move this over to this wall right here. Let's go ahead and put it right about here. This looks good. I'll go ahead and make sure the shadows are just your usual drop shadow. That looks good. And then remember, when you do the fireplace part, go down a layer to the layer called floor, because then you won't be able to put stamps on the chimney unless you do it on the floor or on the layer called walls, right? So, and then it'll get all out of place, right? You'll have some things on the floor and some things on the wall layer, and it will kind of confuse you. So my suggestion is when you add like stairs and other things like that, make sure that you add them, uh, make sure that you put them on those separate layers. You'll find that helpful. Oops, not a chimney fireplace. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and use one that's already lit. I think that would be kind of nice. It's on my floor layer, so when I place that, it's on my floor layer. Oh, wait a minute. Did I put this shape on the wrong layer? I did. No problem. I'm going to switch. We're going to move to layer floor. There we go. Or did I put it on the wrong layer? Let me double check real quick. Shape, do I need to go up a couple layers? Oh, yep, it's on the wrong layer, so I have to just do that all together. Easy fix, no problem here. Excuse me one moment, thanks for waiting. Go back to my, move that back. I'll go ahead and undo that real quick. Looks like I might end up having to do that after all, and that's no big deal. Go to undo one more time. Here we go. Oop, how far back is that? I think I'm just gonna have to go to the history. There it is. This is on the wall layer, so it looks like I'll just have to put it on this layer here, because unfortunately, when I do that, it looks like I can't make it a layer below. It'll always be on top of it. So my mistake, my error. Love it when that happens. Let's go ahead and add that fireplace then. I'll go ahead and put it here on that wall layer. Don't have much of a choice. Push this down here, push this up against the wall. That looks good. What size is this? 31. We'll make it a little bit smaller. I think about this size looks good. And I'll just do your regular ambient occlusion. Here we go. This looks good. 0. All right, that looks right. We'll go ahead and throw in a bed. Let's put in a single bed because I think a double's not going to fit. Look how big that is. It's so huge. So if I put in a smaller one like this, it should probably fit in better. I'll go ahead and bring the scale down a little bit. And in fact, why don't we move the fireplace actually over to here? This is a better idea. Move this to here. It's a better idea. I'll make sure to put this on that roof layer as well. There, and then this should keep you a lot warmer. There we go. Just trying to think, how can my person stay nice and warm? We'll go ahead and push this down a couple layers so we get those shadows of the walls hitting the bed. That looks good. So, and you'll notice that I'm using the biggest stamps first, right? The bed is probably going to be your biggest stamp here. So I'll make sure that I place that first. And now you can see how much room you actually have. When your players walk in, they're not going to hit up against this bed right here. They have room to walk in like this. They can investigate the room. There should be enough space. And they can go right into here to go into this space here. So that's generally how my approach to it. So notice there's lots of room here for players to move around. That's going to be helpful. And I think the last thing we could put in here is maybe just a small desk and a chair. Maybe they need to write things down, or maybe they need a space to like change their clothes. Maybe we could even put like maybe a kitchen. Why don't we put in some kitchen stuff in here? That would make the most sense. That little space right there should be great. Why don't we use, let me see here. Where is that kind of stove? Let me take a look here what I want to use. Let's start with like, I think a place to like wash dishes. So sanitation and like cooking are going to be one. So we'll add a small table here. Let's type in table. These are huge. That's quite large as well. I wonder if there's a smaller table that we can use. Maybe this one right here. How big is that? That's quite large. Just don't want it to be too massive because I don't want it to take up room. Like I could probably fit it here. Oopsie, am I on the right layer here? Oh, I see. This wall is like a couple layers down. There we go. Much better. We'll go ahead and put that table there. We'll make sure we get the ambient occlusion all right. There we go. All right. It's also a little too bright. It's competing with the door, with the walls. So why don't I just bring that brightness down a little bit? There we go. And we've still got to make sure there's enough room. So I'll kind of squeeze it into this corner here. Like this, there's still room here. You can walk in. There's still room here and here. It's a tight space. but you don't need much when you're just running the mill. So there should be something to prepare food. This is like the bare minimum for every kind of bedroom, or at least this living space for them. Something for food and something for sleeping. These are kind of the bare human needs that are necessary. So we'll make sure to put those in there. There we go. That looks good. And I'll add details later. What we'll do is we'll just get all the major stamps first. I think the last thing I might want to add is maybe just a chair. And I think what might be a good choice is maybe like a rocking chair, just like right here. So that way, if they want to sit in front of the fire and just kind of stay warm, they can totally do that. And then that will also allow for your players to like pick up, hit people with, maybe it casts an interesting shadow. So it should be a little bit more interesting to kind of have that in there. There we go, tons of room. So then we'll move into this next one. And my suggestion is when you make the mechanism, I'd start with the main shaft in which the water wheel is going to be attached to. And you can either use a pole or use the line tool for it. It's really up to you. Why don't we just look at the stamps first? I'll just type in pole. And there should be a couple of them here. There's like this desert pole here. It looks a little, let's go ahead and use maybe a smaller one, and then I can maybe change the size. I think about there looks good. I'll go ahead and push this way like this. And what I also want to do is I noticed that the roof piece is showing right here, so I want to make some changes to that as well. Let's go ahead and first take that threshold. Take that same threshold. I'll make it nice and big and put it here. That'll be good. I'll go ahead and put this here, and then I'll come back and make changes. Let's just make sure this is about, I'd say about the right size. Let's go ahead and turn the shadow off here. Let's also bring the brightness down. Keep in mind that you can bring the brightness down on more stamps on the interior because there's usually less light, and it will also distinguish exterior stamps from interior stamps. On the exterior, it's during the day. Your stamps are going to be brighter, while on the inside, you can make them slightly darker just to make sure that there's a difference between the interior and the exterior. Again, you're using contrast. It's like a giant iron rule right there. So now that I've kind of created the main shaft, now I know where the other pieces need to go, like some of the gears that are going to need to fit in this little housing section right here, and then the stone is going to, the grindstone is going to be right over here. So let's just type in mill in the catalog, and a whole bunch of stuff will pop up. First thing we'll probably want is to use the gears. So I'll kind of start at the wheel and then move my way towards here. So I'll go ahead and just look at all my gear options here. About this size looks good here. Notice how it fits into the wheel housing. We'll make it a little bit smaller so that way there's enough room for maintenance. So what we'll do is, here's the thing, when you do a mechanism, you don't have to make it 100% realistic, but you have to make it look like that it functions, that the mechanism looks believable, but you don't have to do realistic. Just make it believable. So throwing in a couple gears into the housing here makes it look a little bit more interesting to show that there's some kind of mechanism. I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down a little bit. Remember, we're on the inside, so I can bring that down a little bit. And then from those gears, I can go into the next part, which is look for the grindstone. I see that there's a milling mechanism right here. This works great. And then I can go in and kind of scale it up to kind of the size that I need. So I can go this size right here. My suggestion would be to center it. Center it almost perfectly, the best that you can. So really make sure that it's centered. And then I'll just go here and just kind of walk my mouse around so that I can kind of see that there's enough space for players to walk around the millstone. And then what I also might do is just bring the saturation down just a little bit. Bring that brightness down a little bit so it kind of matches the same wooden color. And then I have this kind of nice millstone mechanism. Notice that I have a couple gears right here. And then I have a gear right here where the rod or the shaft right here has this one gear that's facing upright and it's grabbing onto the teeth of this cog right here and then grabbing this cog right here. And then it causes the whole stone to kind of move. Underneath would be another stone that would be grinding. So we'll go ahead and add that. I'll make sure also to get the shadows right. As always, just make sure they're set to 0. Kind of wish they were set that way automatically. But we'll go ahead and add a little bit of shadow here so that way you can show that the stone is a little bit further up. That makes sense. So now we kind of have the living space and we have the interior part. So I think that turns out really nice. And I think most of the big stamps are pretty much in place. So when you go to the details, it's all about what that room's function is. So if I go back into the kind of bedroom here, the living space here, I've got a bed. So there's a bunch of things that I can put on the bed. I can put clothes, an instrument, whatever tells a little about the person that lives there. I often will put like a guitar or some kind of instrument. Maybe they're an archer or a hunter as well. You could put a bow and arrow, or just type in bow like this, and you'll find like a bow and arrow of some kind that you want to put like here. Just kind of will tell a little bit about the story of that person. Maybe there's a book, maybe there's notes from a journal, whatever it might be, right? I'm just going to put a quiver and arrows because maybe they're also a hunter as well. They're kind of balancing out their diet by also including some meat. So we'll go ahead and throw in that as well. That matches in. Where this table is, I probably want to add maybe like a stool, so someplace that they can kind of sit at that table. If they want to sit and cook their food, they can. I'll put a stool there. I'll push this down a layer so it's below. I'll also bring the brightness down, bring the brightness back up on this a little bit so it is contrasting a little bit. There we go. That makes sense. Why don't we also put like maybe the place that he prepares food is where he also eats it, because it's just a limited space. That makes sense. Why don't we also throw on like maybe a plate of some kind? Let's go ahead and use like maybe food. Let's see what we can choose here. It is a mill, so why don't we maybe use this? This looks like more like a baguette to me. Let's type in bread. Or actually, I'll just scroll down. Let me see if I can find some bread here. Ooh, there's some nice buns here. Why don't we put those on there? Go and bring the brightness down. Just to show that they're eating something. I think that's helpful. Let's go and put a little bit of bread there. It is a mill, so they're processing the grain for it. Makes a lot of sense. So why don't we put some bread? Doesn't mean that they're making the bread themselves, but maybe they have a deal with the baker who lives there. So maybe one of the residents there has a deal with them on that. So we'll go ahead and put that on there. There we go. I'll make sure that my shadows are right. This looks like it's an older one, so I'll just kind of bring the contrast down so it kind of matches with the 2.0 art. Really, I've noticed there's a little trick. If you want some of the 1.0 art to match the 2.0 art, you can bring the contrast down a little bit, because the difference between 1 and 2.0, besides the better quality, is that the line work is different. The line work around this new bread stamp is very thin. It's not very dark. You'll notice that, while the 1.0 sliced bread has a much thicker, darker outline. You can bring the contrast down just a little bit. It won't mimic it perfectly because of the quality difference, but it look a little bit more similar that way. Something that I've kind of discovered, because not everything has been redone yet, so you might end up probably matching a lot of 1 and 2.0. Good little trick. Just bring that contrast down a hair. That will help. So we've kind of added some details into this room. We'll save light and shadow for later. Why don't we also maybe put like a knife? If they are a hunter, they're probably going to want to have maybe a knife of some kind. So why don't we just put the knife maybe right there on the chair? And then why don't we also put some cooking stuff? Notice that they have a fireplace right here. Makes total sense. That's where we're going to do their cooking. So why don't we throw like a pot on here? Let's just use a cooking pot from here. Why don't we put a pot just right on top, just right there? And then why don't we put another one maybe on the floor right here like this? And that way it's clear that we have our cooking equipment. That's all going to be kind of important here. Let's go and bring, why don't we actually put this one underneath the bed? I think that will make it give it a little bit more depth. Remember, I've mentioned in previous videos, big secret to depth is to overlap stamps. Notice that I have a stamp on top of the fireplace mantle. Notice that I have this on top of here. Notice that I have stuff on the table. I have this stool underneath this table here, this pot underneath this bed here. That's going to create depth, right? Because you're creating an order of multiple stamps stacked on top of each other. I always recommend putting things on top of and below tables, beds, fireplace mantles, all of that stuff, because that's really going to help to sell the sense of depth. If everything is not overlapping each other, then it's going to seem kind of flat. So kind of a little trick to kind of help you out there. I think that's enough details for this room. Anything more than that might be overdoing it, considering that it's such a small space. Any more details will probably make the room feel cluttered. It's already quite cluttered already. So we'll go into this next room. My suggestion in this one is we want to show that maybe the people who are running this have access for the maintenance parts. That means taking care of a shaft, being able to reach things. So why don't we create a little bit, maybe of a little bit of a boardwalk with a stair that maybe goes up right here, that will create access, and it will break the symmetry of the map. So right on this side, I'm going to create what's called a gangway or a wooden walkway plank of some kind. And what that will do is it will allow people to go up a little bit to grab access to the maintenance here, because that's going to be important, right? So, and it will also throw off the symmetry that's in the room, because right now there's a lot of symmetry in this room. So I'll go into the catalog here with the line tool. I'm going to go in and maybe just type in dock, and this dock will work great as some kind of boardwalk. And I'll go ahead and just maybe bring the scale down a little bit. And I'll put the boardwalk just right up against the wall itself, like this. I don't mind rotating it a little bit so that it matches, and I'll put it all the way up against the wall like this, so that way there's kind of room there that'll go all the way against here. I'll also bring that brightness down like I did before. That looks good. And then I'll go ahead and just add a stair that just goes right up to this, and then it gets you access, so that way people who are trying to repair this have access to it. That's going to be important. So I'll go back into my catalog here. I'll just type in stair of some kind. I don't need to use a line if I don't want to. I'll just use a stamp. I usually do a mix of both, really what's most convenient for you. It doesn't really matter whether you want to use a stair or if you want to use a line tool, that's up to you. I'll go ahead and bring that brightness down a little bit. Remember, just a little bit darker than the wooden planks themselves. Push it a little further away from this wall over here, so that way there's room for players to walk up. And now when you take a step back, you'll notice that the room is no longer symmetrical. It broke up that symmetry. It created some functionality, selling what that room is for, creating believability. And now we can go in and start putting in some details. Someone mentioned sacks. That was Typher Zero. Absolutely, let's do that. When you are adding your details, you want to factor in moving space. Otherwise, your players are going to be, just to walk around something, they're going to have to like jump over a sack or a barrel. So what we'll end up doing is we'll go back to the catalog. I'll type in sack, and I'll show you some cool little details that I do. Notice that there are sacks that have something broken, and then there are some sacks that are completely unbroken. I think if you mix between the both of these, you'll have a more convincing scene, like what broke open that sack. Was it maybe some kind of creature of some kind? So throwing in something that's broken or something that seems out of place that will contrast, that's going to tell a story. What you should start first, though, is with the regular sacks first, the ones that aren't broken and torn. And I'll show you kind of a cool trick on how to create depth here. I'm not going to put the sacks over here so it doesn't break with access over here, but I notice that there's room right here, and there's room right here. No room here. So I should take these sacks right here, and I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down. Here's the first one, and I'll go ahead and just stack some just like this against the wall. We'll do 3. 3 is a good little choice here. Make sure that it's not out of place. Also rotate a little bit so they're not exactly the same. So I'm going to rotate there. Why don't I actually do a little flip here? I'll flip that one that way. There we go. And then you'll just go ahead and take 2, copy and paste. Bring that brightness up just a hair. Go up 1 layer and then stack them on top like this. If those bottom ones aren't dark enough to create the contrast, then just bump that brightness down. There we go. Now there is some contrast there. Copy and paste 1 more time. Bring that brightness up a little bit more. And then what you've done is you've created a kind of a pyramid or stacked sacks by using contrast. The lowest ones, the 3 at the bottom, are darkest. The middle, bring the brightness up a little bit more. Sack at the top, bring the brightness up the most. Remember, to create the sense of depth, use contrast. It's something that every artist usually knows. It's contrast is your trick to kind of depth. It works in Inkarnate too, and it can work in other art programs as well. Contrast is super important. So we'll go ahead and kind of add some more sacks as well. I think we should put some upright ones like this, just to create some contrast, like one that maybe that's stacked up against like this. Put it up in that corner there. That will be a nice touch. Let's go ahead and maybe put another one that's got maybe potatoes or something in it. Let's go ahead and put that up against the wall like this. That looks good. There we go. And then I'll also go ahead now, and then I'll make a couple more right here like this up against this wall. And then I'll go in and go to the broken ones like this. And my recommendation is to turn the shadow off on these, because you're also going to have the shadow on the grain itself. And personally, I don't care for that. So don't have your shadow on, and then go ahead and just put that maybe like right here next to this one. Maybe we can put these ones on top like this and have that open, and that will tell a story like what happened. How did that break open? I think that'll be really good choice there. Let's bring the brightness down so that there's clear contrast here. That looks good. And then what I should also do is just take a step back and just see what room I have left. I think some other things that might be nice besides sacks would be anything between like crates, barrels, empty or otherwise, would be good choices. So why don't we do that? If you ever get confused on what to add, crates and barrels are always just a great filler, because there's usually going to be like tools in a crate for fixing things. There's going to be tools. There's going to be maybe food stock is going to be in there, all kinds of things. So adding in a crates, barrels are always a good touch. We can kind of put one maybe like right up against here against the millstone. I think that would act as a nice little, like something that your players can hide behind. If there's something going on over here, they can hide behind this crate. I think that's a good choice. And then copy and paste. And if ever you have one crate, a recommendation would be to have small, like varying crates. It's going to be helpful. Sacks work best, but crates are going to be great for hiding like tools, whatever else that you might need to store things. That's usually what crates are for. So just make sure that you have variation. Because this one is smaller, I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. Remember that trick of contrast? And now I have a little bit of crate there. It adds a little bit more space there. That looks good. So then the last thing that I would do in here before I move on to light and shadow would be to create a little bit of floor texturing. So what I'll do here is I'll click floor right here, and I'll go add layer in the right layer panel. I'll go ahead and add a brush layer, and I'm going to go ahead and just rename that layer floor brush. We'll go ahead and delete. Let's go floor brush like this. Make sure that it's above the floor and below, or actually it needs to be above, actually, now that I remember. Excuse me. So we have our floor brush here above. And what I want to do is, if you look at that floor, it's just super clean, right? If you're processing grain, guess what? You're going to have it be a stinking mess. There's going to be grain everywhere. So a great little trick for this is just to type in dry. And you'll notice this dry grass right here. What we're going to want to do is change that scale like this. We'll bring that down a little bit. I think the brightness actually looks fine. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just bring the opacity down a little bit, and I'll just use a regular brush, and I can go ahead and just paint. Oopsie, let's go ahead and bring the brightness a little down. It is a little too much, so we'll go ahead and fix that real quick. Right there is fine. Let's bring the brightness down just a little bit. It's going to be a little dark because it's being trampled upon. You're going to get dirt mixed in with it, so that's going to happen. And I'll just go ahead and just kind of paint in a little bit of dirt like this, and then that should fix that issue. Even put a little bit on top of your thing here, a little bit on top of here. Even put a little bit on your millstone. That's not a bad idea. Don't forget to put a little bit over your threshold, going into this room right here, even onto the stairs, a little bit of dirt here. And what this will do is it will create this illusion of movement, that there's something going on. So all of that is really kind of helpful to add that brush layer. Now when I take a step back, you'll notice that that works out quite well. Okay, so the last thing that we want to do is we want to do light and shadows. And so what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and take a step back. I'm going to look, just try to remember where my light source is, so we can establish that. Light source is over here, and it's kind of going down this way, so shadows are projecting that way. This is going to be useful for windows and doors, but it may not be useful for all of the light and shadows inside of your building. One of the first things I do, if you want to show that there is a door here, my recommendation is to, let's go ahead and add one more object layer. We'll go add layer. We'll go object layer. I'm going to rename this light. Now you could use a brush layer. You don't have to use lights. sources, but I want to make sure that the light source is above the floor texturing. Otherwise, that's going to look good. So what I'll end up doing is just type in light. And a cool little trick for making light appear underneath a door would be to use this half circle light right here, like this, and just go ahead and scale it. Make sure it's the right size, and then go ahead and place it just right here like this, right where that threshold is. And then this will create this illusion a little bit. There's a light peeking underneath the door. That's going to be your first step. That's going to be helpful. And since the light is facing this way, you're going to have a little bit of light going in. We could even bring the opacity down a little bit if you feel that's too bright. So you can kind of adjust. Here's your first step, showing light coming from the outside, going inside the crack that's underneath that door. And then we're also going to want to add a light source for this chimney right here. That's going to make a lot of sense. So I'll go ahead and take that light source again. And there's a couple approaches that you can to light sources with stamps. Sometimes I'll add in an orange stamp right where the fire is, and I'll add a yellow stamp over that. But because I've added a red light filter, I think it's okay just to go ahead and just use a regular one here. I'll push this way, right here like this. So now we've established a light source there. That looks good. We'll get to shadows in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and add the light sources for everything. So I'll copy and paste. The next light source is going to be right here. Kind of makes sense. It's a little harder to see because of the gray. So I'll just go ahead and bring that opacity up so that light really pops out. That's going to show up right there, just to show that there's light coming under the creaks of the door. Same thing here. I'm going to place a light source right here like this. And I just want to show that there's light, a little bit of light coming in, even though there's a shadow right here. There would still be just a little bit of light here. Just a little bit kind of coming in. I'll bring that down a little bit. There we go. We can take a step back. Now, one thing that we might want to consider doing is maybe putting in some windows so that more natural light, because I don't really want to put in maybe like a torch in here. Maybe it's a fire hazard. So why don't we also throw in windows? Could have done that in my door part, but I think throwing them in now is just fine. So I'll go to walls here. We'll type in window, and this will save us a little bit of time with having to add internal light sources. So I'll go in, go to windows. Let's go with window 2.0. And I think some good locations for windows are probably going to be on this back side right here. So I'll put a window right here like this. I'll bring that scale down. This way we can get a little bit of light kind of coming in like this. It's in the shadow here, so you probably wouldn't have too much light coming from here, but just having that there is not a bad idea. A little bit of light here. Copy and paste. I'm thinking about the structural integrity of the map as I add more windows. So I think just one window there should be fine. And I'll just add a little bit of a light source. Copy and paste. Just go ahead and put that light source just right here where that window is. There we go. A lot of people will say, well, a window that is not in the direct light wouldn't have light that comes in, but light bounces off all these objects. Okay? Just keep that in mind. Like, just because it's in a shadow or there might be a shadow, light reflects and it fills up and it bounces off all these surfaces, allowing for light to fill up a room. So just kind of keep that in mind there. I think that light source is good there and there. And then I can go ahead and let's say that this door is maybe open, which I think is a good idea. So what I'll do is I'll add a full-on light source right here like this. I'll go ahead and stretch it a little bit, change that width, make sure that light is really filtering in to here. I'm trying to show that that door is open. This way, tons of light should filter in and fill this up. That looks good. Let's go ahead and take a step back and make sure that I got all my lighting right. And then we'll go ahead and go on to that final step, which is to add in your lighting. And there's a couple approaches that I kind of take to this. It's really up to you which way you want to approach it, but you can use a night filter to do in your shadows. So what we'll do is, let's do a couple things. Let's go ahead and just use another night filter. For this, we'll add layer, type in filter layer, night. It's going to be great. And what I want to do is, because there's so much light bouncing in and out, and it's middle of the day, it's kind of daytime, there's no need to make these super dark shadows on the interior unless a light source is just super close to the object. So what I'll do is I'll bring the opacity down a little bit on this, maybe probably about 40 or so. And then I'll go ahead and take that same night filter, add a mask. on that mask layer, I'll go ahead and go fill and kind of remove all of the shadow. So go fill like this. Oopsie, make sure my opacity is at about that. So go fill. There we go. Then I can go back. And now I can go ahead and paint in my shadows like this. And you can always adjust the shadow as need be. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of adjusting the opacity here just to see which kind of works best. My suggestion is to have it dark enough to where you at least the shadows create some contrast. Like this is a little too blue, it's a little too much, but right about here seems like there's enough shadow there to show up, so that looks good. I'll go back and just go ahead and fill. Get rid of that. There we go. Go back. And then I can go in and start painting in my shadows here. So you'll establish where your light source is because there's a light source right here. You're going to expect maybe some shadows going like this. Like that. There's also a light source coming this way. So it doesn't hurt to kind of maybe move the shadows in a little bit this way. Like this. And there's a little bit of light right here. It's in a shadow. So what we can do is we can also paint in this as well, and I can make adjustments to this. There we go. Paint a little bit more this way. There we go. And we'll paint in this whole section. Dark shadows. Like this. This looks good. So this would all have light. There's also this right here. So we'll create a little bit of a shadow where this gear is, this light source right here. This is the strongest light source right here. And then I'll also paint in a little bit of a shadow here as well for the grindstone. Just depending on where the light source is. There's a light coming this way as well, so I do need to factor that in. So now I've added a light source to this. And the taller the millstone is, the greater the shadow will be on the ground. So if you wanted to show that it's high up, then you would want to make that shadow go further out. That's going to be that step. We also want to add a little bit of light here as well, along here. That looks good. And then, of course, you don't need to worry about shadows in here. That's in a shadow. And then I'll go back over here. Let's also do this. This corner right here would probably have a little bit of shadow here. And I'd say we could put a little bit of shadow here as well in this corner. I think that looks fine. There we go. A little bit of light there. Let me just take a step back. Why don't we also have this light source coming from right here? So we'll put a little bit here like this. And then we'll go ahead and just take a step back. I also missed this one right here as well. This gear, that looks good. We'll take a step back there. That looks good. Let me just take a step back real quick. And you can see how the shadow works there. And you can always adjust the shadow as we need be here. So if I feel it's too dark in there, look, just go ahead and bring the opacity down. So you have complete control on how much shadows you want. My suggestion is at nighttime, there's less light filtering in from the windows and the creaks in the door, the creases in the door, or not creases, sorry, the openings in the doors. So your shadows probably don't have to be quite as pronounced. But at night, for sure, you'd really want to get those darker shadows because light and dark is more pronounced during the night than it is during the day. So I would just bring it down a little bit like this so that way the opacity is still there, right? You can really see the shadow there. The shadows are clear, but they're not quite as strong as the shadows on the exterior because that's where a much stronger light source is, the sun. So now you've kind of figured out like the process, right? We went over that process here. We created the outer walls. We also included the inner walls and we did room assignment. We added our windows and our doors. That played an important role. We added the largest stamps first. Like for this room, it was obviously going to be the bed and that table there. For the mill, in this part right here, we obviously had that grindstone and this boardwalk or gangway right here. It makes the most sense. We added details. Remember, whatever that room is, those are the details you're going to use. And then we wrapped up with light and shadows. And we will do one more. So we're probably going to go probably another hour, but I don't mind. It's okay. We'll go for another hour here and we'll do that next one. Again, all the other ones will be time-lapsed. Before I jump into the next one, was there any questions or anything that you noticed about this one before I move on? I'll go ahead and turn my process off here. I think overall, oh, I did forget one shadow, actually, my mistake. It was the shadow casting from that chair right there. Oops, perfect. I'm glad I kind of caught myself on that one. I'll go ahead and bring that brush size down a little bit. Oh, you know what? Let's do a cool trick. Instead of using, well, actually, no, we will. We'll just go ahead and paint that shadow on there like this. And what I'll do is I'll create the basic shape first. And if there's a hole, you notice how there's a hole right there in that chair. We can replicate that by simply going back over to black here, bring that size down, and just go ahead and create a little bit of the shadow for that opening in the chair, just like that. So now you have a little bit of a shadow there. That looks good. And I can go back over to here, bring that brush size up a little bit, and just paint a little bit more shadow along this like this. So now you have that light source kind of popping out. I'll also add a little bit of light source along the bow here. That looks good. Also, this table needs a little bit more shadow and a little bit of shadow projecting from the light source from these items right here. There we go. So now you have all the shadows there correctly. My mistake, forgot about that. There we go. That looks good. Okay, now we can go ahead and move to the next one. We'll go up. And I believe people said they wanted, what was it? What was the other one? Let me go up real quick. The herbalist, I think it was. Let me just double check. Yeah, herbalist. Yeah, it's all herbalist. Okay, so we're going to do the herbalist next. This will probably take about another hour here. But the herbalist is right here. So, and I'm glad that it's an awkward shape too. That's good because we can kind of put that together. All right, so first step, we'll go over to walls. Go over to your shape tool. We'll go ahead and find the right shape here. We got the stone floor, stone foundation. I think all the buildings will have the same construction, a stone foundation with a wood wall on top. So that way there's kind of uniformity. We'll go over to shape. Instead of using the pen this time, we'll use a shape. Make sure we switch over to 8. And I recommend doing the preview so that way when you do this, you won't accidentally make a mistake. So some shortcut keys here, Control key or the Alt Start key. Click those two at the same time. And then what you will do is it will both center and keep the shape, have the equal sides. So that'll be kind of important. So I'll go ahead and there and go to Add. And now I have that shape there. Remember that important thing we talked about? You want overhang, so don't cover the entire roof. Just cover it to where there's a little bit of the eaves popping over it. That's going to be an important step, so just kind of remember that. And then what we'll do is we'll add in the other shapes here. It looks like there's going to be a little bit of pop out here, a pop out here. We'll do all of those. We'll remember to keep it at preview. We'll switch over to this shape here. Remember to factor in those eaves or overhangs. We'll go to Merge Shape and just go Add. And then we've added that shape. Why don't we continue with this rectangle shape here? We can kind of create a little bit of an entrance right here like this. And in fact, it doesn't even have to be made of stone. This part could be made of wood because this part is not the main structure. So we might not have to do that. We might have to do something else there. Let's go ahead and do a circle piece. I'll follow those same shortcut keys. Make sure I get around the right shape here. Go to Add. Let me just take a step back and look at it. Yep, that looks about right. That looks good. Okay. And then I want to make sure that my set to the right layer here. Looks like the layer offset is off. I'll bring that back down to about 8. That looked good. I'll go ahead and now go ahead and place in my axis. So entrances, exit, things like that. So we'll do this. Go to portal. Because this is the entrance right here, it makes sense to put the portal right here, like that. First portal is done. We're going to want to also add in our staircase because this leads up to a second floor right here. So we'll show you how to put together a staircase pretty easily. We'll go ahead and type in stair. If you don't see the circular stair, don't get discouraged. If you go over to the hamburger menu here and just so expand all assets, then you'll see all the spiral staircases. So they're all there. I'll just go ahead and use maybe this one right here. It already has the built-in kind of shadow into it, so that might be helpful. This could be two things. It could lead to a second floor, or it can lead to a basement. Because it is an herbalist, I think it makes more sense to maybe have it lead upstairs to like a loft space, because that's where they're going to hang. Heat rises. So trying to dry your herbs in a basement makes less sense. That's where a lot of the cool air might be. So having it above on a loft floor makes the most sense. So this stair right here will lead to a first floor. And I won't use stone. I think I'll use a wooden one if I can find one. That way it can kind of show that by adding a stone stair, it kind of suggests that there is a big second or a big first floor because it requires the foundation necessary. But by using a wooden one, you're kind of suggesting that maybe it's just a loft instead of a big second floor space. So I should look for a circular wooden one. I think I can use this right here, wooden stairs, Easton Village. This will work just fine. I'll use that. Just make sure that you push it down a layer. It needs to be below this piece. So let me make sure that these, did this scale not work? Let me double check this real quick. Yep, the layer offset didn't go down, my mistake. Layer 8. And I think I'll also make the walls go up. Oopsie, that's the wrong one. Up one, there we go, that looks good. And I'll go ahead and place my stair here. I'll have to rescale it. First, place your stairs like this. This looks good. I'll have to probably add some additional wall right here where this kind of pops out, and that's not a problem. I'll show you how to fix that issue. We'll go ahead and do that. So we'll do this. I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down a little bit. That way it kind of pops out. You also need to have the supporting pillar that's going to connect the planks that create each stair. So what we should do is we'll have maybe the stair be a pillar of some kind for that central pillar there. I'm going to use, let's see which ones. I think this one has a good one. There should be just a regular circular one like this. I'll go ahead and desaturate that. Go ahead and place that a layer above like this. Make sure that the shadow is really thick on this one because it's a pillar that's going up, right? And to show that there's depth to it, we're going to add a nice thick shadow to that. Bring that intensity up, bring the blur up. There we go. And now I have this nice kind of stair right here. That makes sense. The only problem that I'm kind of experiencing that you might notice here is that I need to make sure that I have some kind of overhang that overhangs this part right here and then a wall that kind of connects that. So I'll show you how I put that together. I'll go ahead and maybe just steal a couple things. Like for starters, I can just take this threshold right here, just copy and paste it, just kind of take it and use it for my own evil, nefarious purposes. I put that right here. This is going to act as an overhang. The way that I would recommend this is bring the brightness up on this to show that it's a little higher up, and also create some, use a dark shadow. It's going to be really necessary to help. So I'll bring a shadow up like this. About that size probably looks fine. You're going to want to put it right here like this. Notice that the stairs, this is the part that leads up here. So I'll go ahead and make sure to line that stair up there, and then I'll go ahead and line this piece right here like this. That's going to overhang like that. That looks good. And then we're going to want to create some kind of wall piece. Now I've noticed that I've already need to maybe put some wooden wall on there. So I'll go ahead and just go turn my fill off. I'll change over to this wooden wall here. I'll kind of place that right here on top, just like I did before. That looks good. And then what I can also do is just go ahead and take a circle shape right here, make sure it's set to preview. And I'll go ahead and scale it to make sure that it kind of matches with this right here. Turn merge shape off. We'll go add. Pretty easy stuff here. And then all I have to do right now is just go ahead and I'll go ahead and create a, one moment here. I'll go ahead and create an opening here for this. Like this. I think it needs to be a little bit smaller, kind of like this. I think that looks good. Let's go ahead also grab this piece and connect that right there like that. There we go. A little bit of a challenge there. And now you have a clear stair that kind of leads up. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And it's got a little bit of extra shadowing in there, which I think is a nice little touch. So now you have your access to go up into that loft space. It's not another floor, it's a loft space. That's where the herbalist is obviously going to hang all of their herbs and everything that they're cooking up. So that will be good. We'll add that there. After I've added in that part, I want to continue with my access. Remember, we were talking about access. Might be a good idea to maybe just create a wooden section right here. Who needs a stone foundation for just a little awning that's going to be covering the entrance? Don't need a stone foundation because it's not supporting an extra floor or a loft or anything like that. So I could probably just use wood for this. So just like I did before, I can just kind of use a shape here, go like this, kind of put that together, go add like this. I have a little bit of a shape there. I'll go ahead and remove a couple things here. One, I'll go ahead and lose this shape right there. And then I'll also go ahead and grab the threshold from somewhere else so I don't have to remake it. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'll just grab the threshold that I used right here. This one right here looks good. Copy and paste. Put that threshold here. There we go. That looks good. So now I have a threshold there. And then I'm also going to create another portal right here. We'll open that up right there. And then I'll go ahead into my finished buildings and kind of remove this stair. That's good. Awesome. Okay, hope everyone's sticking with me. I know it's a long stream, but I know none of you mind. Here we go. Let me just take a step back at it. So some things that I might want to consider doing are go back to walls here, and let's go and adjust the rotation for this so it's facing the right way. Why don't we go with this way so it's kind of the long way? And that's just a wooden section there. Why don't we copy and paste, put another threshold in here. Oopsie, I know what we got to do here. Let's grab this and we'll change the layer offset for this. There we go. Great. Now I can take this piece and put that down a couple layers. There we go. Change the size. This looks good. There we go. And then I can go ahead and put some stairs in there. Where did that stair go? Oops. Looks like I'll have to grab it from over here. Oh, I put that on a floor layer too. Let me just go over here. Copy, paste. There we go. Move over to here. I'll go ahead and put the stair on the wall section here. Put some stairs here, and I'm going to have to erase some of that roof section right there, and we'll get to that in a little bit. There we go. We have an entrance leading into here. Just like before, we're also going to grab those caps. It's going great. Anna Mazami, going great. Last episode, final episode for this stream series. We're doing 2 interiors, and the rest will be time-lapsed, because the process is pretty much the same for every single building. So you don't need to see me do every building. You really just need to see the process so that way it's a lot easier and keeps that content a little bit shorter. Go ahead and put some caps here. Remember, these little wooden pillars work best in the more 90-degree angles. It becomes a little bit more tricky when you start getting into these kind of angles right here like this where there's a diagonal. I'm also going to put like maybe a pillar right here and a pillar right here. That looks good. There we go. And so now we have those access points there. That looks good. I think I will put another one, copy and paste right here. I know the diagonals are a little off. It's probably a little weird there, but it should work. And it's off here a little bit too. And I actually kind of like that it's not perfectly lined up. Like it should be moved over to here, but it's not. I actually kind of like that. It really adds a little bit more character to the map because little mistakes like that are actually kind of nice. It adds to the build. Most buildings are not perfectly symmetrical, especially when you think about, medieval buildings and things like that. So it's kind of nice to add this in this way, maybe castles and stuff, but village buildings, probably not. So I think that works out well. So what we'll do too is we'll also separate, we'll start going into the internal walls, which will be really important. So we'll go ahead and grab a wall right here. I'll kind of connect this here like this. It's wobbled off a little bit, so I'll kind of move this. And I actually think it's kind of nice. I like that. It shows a little bit of difference there. That's cool. Then we'll also add access. How do you get into that room? Remember, this is a really small room, just like this one. So we'll go ahead and put it onto the side here. This room's a little bit bigger than this one, so that's kind of nice. There's a little bit more room in here. That looks good. Or if you don't want to, we could actually create a space in the front here that would be the store space, and then the rest could be actual room. I think that would be better. Why don't we do that? It should be more interesting. So this might be confusing at first, but why don't we kind of create like a shape like this, another shape like this, and then I think what we're going to do is we're going to create, what I want to do is create a space for, let's take a look here. I want to create a space it's going to be like the room where people can like have the business for the herbalist right here and the rest right here. will kind of be living space. So we could put like a little kitchen in here. We could put a bedroom over here. So that way we can create a lot of extra room. And I think that will be kind of nice and helpful. So maybe I can even break this room a little bit. Let me just look at the space here. I can walk this way. You walk in here. Let's create a little bit of a door here. If I create a door here, it'll lead right into the bedroom, and I'll put another door right here that will just lead right into where the stair is. And I think that will be good. We'll add that. Cool. Now we have a more unique shape for our interior than just 90-degree angles. We have some diagonals here, some really weird spaces, and I actually really like that, so that's a nice touch. We'll go ahead and copy and paste these pillars here. So you can see that I'm doing the exact same method that I used to make the last building. So it's pretty easy to try to figure out how I kind of put it together. So I think this looks good. Add some space there. Maybe they want the bedroom to be a little bit more private from this space here. So what we could do is just add another space like this. Add another one like this. There we go. That looks good. And now we have a nice little space right here. So now we have room here, and I can change a bunch of things in here as well. Like I'll have this made of wood. Maybe this section can be made of wood in here. And then this section right here will be made of stone. So we can add all those things together. That looks good. Why don't we create the thresholds real quick? There's a threshold right here. So I'll copy and paste. Threshold here. Go ahead and bring the scale down a little big. There we go. That looks good. Copy, paste. Threshold here. I think what I might want to do is also create a door right here, because how are they have to go through the storefront to get to the loft? Doesn't make any sense. So what we'll end up doing is we'll create another door right here. Enough space there, and I can go ahead and just use again these to create the door frame here. Copy, paste. Then also put the next threshold there. There we go. Bring that down a layer. Looks good. Oops, we'll go up a layer. That looks better. Same thing here. Put this up a layer. There we go. Much better. Okay. So now we have all our access points. This right here is going to lead into the main shop here. That's going to be where you're going to have things on display, herbs. Maybe even that's where you have like a front desk, where you have like a register or something. And then you'll have this private space in here, which could be like kitchen, dining right here, and then right here also. And it kind of makes sense to have kitchen, dining in this space up here, because it leads to the access to where the loft is. That's going to make a lot of sense, because that's where the herbs are being dried. So this section right here will all be cooking prep, private space. This will be sleeping space, and this will be storefront. That way it's very clear, and we've made weird shapes as well to make it look more interesting. Let's go ahead and do that normal thing we do with our floors. I'll go ahead and grab a shape. I'll go ahead and choose just this regular wooden floor right here. I'll also use the pen for it. Make sure merge shape is off, and we'll make this space right here be a wooden floor. Go add. That looks good. Make sure that the wooden floor is below the threshold. There we go. The threshold is above that floor section. And then now I can go in and change scale, rotation, whatever I want. Why don't we put it lengthwise, or we can have it match, maybe have it a weird angle like this to make it look a little bit more interesting. I think that looks kind of cool. So we have that space there. Why don't we also have this space right here also made of stone? And what I'll also do is maybe grab that shape, and I'm going to change the scale a little bit of the stone texture a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. Let's take a step back. All right, we have all our access points put together. I think all of the steps are done for wall access stuff. I guess we could put another private entrance right here leading in here, so that way they don't have to go through the storefront every time to go into the bedroom. That's one other thing that we could probably do. Why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and create one more exit right here. And then this way we can, let's see here. What's the main stone one? Right here. That's not the right one. Where is that? Let me take a step back here. There it is right there. We'll go ahead and choose that. There we go. What about the wooden one? Is it this one? That's a line. Where's my shapes at here? Not that one. This one. Oopsie. Real quick. Let me go into shapes here. If you ever get confused or kind of lost and you can't find something, cool little trick. If you go up to this selection tool right here, press this little arrow right here, then go all, and then just go shapes like this, and every single one of your shapes will pop up. I can see the rustic shape here. I can select that and then go switch over, and then that way I'll have selected that. And then there's my entrance right there. Don't forget to follow kind of that same kind of logic. We'll go with back to walls here. Just make sure everything is selected again. Then I can go grab those stairs, place them right here like this. And now there's the entrance leading into that space there. So now you have private entrance as well as business entrance, which is what I usually do for most of my builds. Same thing here, mill entrance, private entrance. That's usually going to be most of your buildings. If there's a business attached, you have a private entrance and a business entrance. So that way they can kind of do both. This isn't business, but it has an entrance to this mill and entrance to the private residence. Kind of important to kind of keep that in mind. What I'll also do is kind of turn off walls here and kind of figure out where my chimneys are. So I see a chimney right here. That kind of gets in the way of my my thing right here. Easy kind of fix. I'll just go ahead and move my door over to here. So that way there's room on that chimney. And then I can just go over again to the shapes. Click all these shapes right here. And then I can just go in here like this. And I can kind of just move these as need be. So I can kind of move. Oh, not that one. This one right here, I believe it is. Nope, that's the wrong one. My mistake. Let's go ahead and lock these so I don't accidentally select them. That should be helpful. There we go. Much better. I can move this one over to here like this. And I'll go ahead and use... which one is it? This one right here. I can move that over to here like this. There we go. This is going to happen once in a while, where you might have an inconsistency, but it's an easy fix. So now I can just put my fireplace right here on the side right here. This should keep this room warm. That's going to be kind of nice, so that will be important. And it looks like there's another fireplace right where this wall is right here. So we'll just go ahead and move that chimney right over to here, so that way, or we can move it over to here. Actually, I think this might be the best spot for a chimney right here. And then that way we have like a space for them to do the cooking. So I think that will work out. Why don't we start in the private residence first, just like we did before. And we'll go ahead and put in the first things, right? We're going to go ahead and put in maybe this. We'll take both this bed, both this table, both the fireplace. We'll take all of those and kind of just place them over here. I'll go ahead and move this. And I'll put the fireplace right about here. There we go. I'll go ahead and bring the brightness down a little bit on this one. There we go. That looks better. I'll put it there. So now you have a nice fireplace right there. I'll go ahead and put the bed in. Just to keep kind of warm, I'll put the bed relatively close to the fireplace. I can put this desk right here. Let's see here. We could put the desk. Let's not put a desk in that way. Why don't we, oopsie, my mistake. Why don't we go ahead and create a little bit more room here? Why don't I put the bed right here? Wondering if I could put like maybe a small bench or something right here. This might work as like a very small little desk. That looks good. Why don't I grab the stool right here as well? We'll go ahead and put that underneath there. This looks good. Okay. And also, so the largest stamps are there. Why don't we go into this next section? We'll put the largest stamps in. There should be a fireplace and a chimney probably right here. I'll go ahead and push this down a layer. There we go. This looks good. That looks good. Okay, so now we have that. It's going to be for like cooking and things like that, so that'll be important. This looks good. That's set up. Let's go ahead and put in the biggest things. We can probably put a much larger table in here. And I'll go ahead and put the large table like right up against this wall right here. I would put it in the center right here, but because there's access to this stair right here, it might create a little bit of space problem. So I can kind of move it maybe a little bit this way. That way there's kind of space to walk around towards here. There's space to walk here, space to walk into the access. Remember, that's always going to be important. Like, I would like to center it right here where the fireplace is, so that way they can just go walk right over behind, turn around, and then go and grab the ingredients off of right out of that fireplace there. But you see how much space it is right here to get around, so it's kind of in the way. So I don't mind maybe just kind of, I could do a couple things here. Like one, I could maybe move the desk up against here like this. That should add in a diagonal piece, and there's still plenty of room in the bottom part and right here. So that's one approach, and that way they just turn around and there's the fireplace. That's a good approach. Why don't we can put another desk in here? This is going to represent maybe like the front desk where transactions take place. I'll make it a little bit smaller so there's plenty of walking around room. That looks good. I can also probably put a bunch of shelves and stuff in. So I could put in like a dresser, shelves, all of those things. We have these dressers here. Why don't we put a dresser up against this wall in here? My mistake. Put one there. We could probably put a smaller one, like maybe right here, like that. That looks good. Why don't we also put a dresser in here somewhere? Right here. This could be like tools. This could be where they store ingredients. Tons of things that you could use that for. That looks good. When it comes to displaying things, we want to add some shelves. And why don't we use an empty one? Because we want to maybe put like herbs or something on it. If we use one that already has built-in stuff to it, it might not be commensurate with what exactly the store is trying to sell. So I think these kind of Tavern 2.0 empty shelves are kind of nice. We can bring the scale up a little bit on them and then put like two to a wall, kind of like this. And that should add like lots of kind of space there. You can even put maybe some shelves behind as well, so that way they can pull stuff off a shelf. That makes sense. I'll go ahead and select these and kind of get the right shadows and darkness right on these, because right now the shadows are all the same. So I'll fix those. Go to shadow, custom object shadow. Oopsie, I think I meant to say not all the same. There we go. Little tongue twist there, bring that intensity up. And I'll bring the brightness down just a little bit. Remember, interior, they can be a little darker. I missed those shadows as well, my mistake. Custom object shadow. Cool, this looks good. This will go by a lot faster. We should probably be done with the next 15 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and get that shadow right. We'll bring the intensity up a little bit more. That looks good. Okay, let me just take a step back. I'm going to go ahead and walk around a little bit, make sure that I got it right. They walk in here. There's enough space to walk around. They can walk into the shop in the back. It's kind of nice. They can just walk in and grab whatever on the table and then go into the bedroom there, or they can go around, go through here. Maybe there's something they were working on. They forgot to bring it in and put it on display. So there's lots of access here. So that works out great. There's an access point that leads right into the back here. That's great. Perfect. Okay. I think I'm walking around. That looks good. Why don't we start adding in all of our little details? That's going to be, and we'll go with each room. One thing I forgot to do was add a rug, and I think a rug might be a good choice. It might also break up a little bit of the color here. Why don't we go with green? And I'll use a circular shape because the rooms have a lot of 90-degree angles and diagonal straight lines. By adding in a circular or an oval like rug, what you're doing is kind of breaking up those straight lines. So it's kind of a nice idea to throw in a rug. Red and green are complementary, so I'll do that. I'll also bring that brightness down. I want to show that it's on the ground, so it's going to be a little bit darker. And then now I have this nice rug. I'm going to offset it to where maybe it's underneath some of the table, some of the bed, some of the dresser a little bit. And by doing that, what I'm doing is kind of creating this illusion of movement. When you walk across a rug so many times, it starts moving because you keep kicking it out of place. And that's perfect. To show that, you can offset a little bit, move things around, and make it look a little odd. And I think that really, really helps by just having it moved around a little bit. Instead of having it being perfectly centered in the room, offset it just a little bit to kind of create that illusion of use. People walking around, things like that. That's going to be important. So just remember that. We don't probably need to add a rug into this room because it would be a nightmare when people are moving all these dried goods. You know what ends up happening? It's going to fall all over the place. That's a nightmare to clean. So we won't put a rug in the workshop or the storefront because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. You'll have to like clean that rug every day from doing that, so we won't worry about that. So we'll start by starting in the centerpiece, which is going to be the table here. Really, I should have added more details in here. I kind of jumped the gun on that. My mistake. And hey, first time chatter, glad that you find this useful. So let's put a little stuff on the table. Again, good one would be something like some papers. I think a book makes sense. An herbalist is probably constantly researching materials, looking up flowers, plants. We'll make it green so that it kind of matches with the green of the table. I'll also rotate it in an angle where it's not the same. You notice how this is the same kind of green? If I rotate it like this to where it's at a different angle than where the rug is, that will help. So look carefully. If I do it like this, it looks a little odd. It looks like a continuation of the rug because of the angle. But if I offset that, make it at a completely different angle, it looks a little bit better. Just something about aesthetics, right? I wanted to keep the same color green, but I didn't make sure that the line or the direction in which the rug is facing is the same direction in which the book is rotated. Kind of helps a little bit there. Maybe a separate curtain between the living and the working quarters. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. A curtain works out fine. Why don't we do that? It's a great idea. Curtain. And if you have suggestions, feel free to throw them in there. Just like Anna is throwing in suggestions, you can do the same. I don't mind. So I think we could probably just use one of these wider green ones right here like this. I'll just go and put it like this, and I'll put it in between. I'll go down a layer, bring the brightness down a little bit. You don't want it to be as dark a green as the rug because it's higher up. So when you do decide the brightness, make it brighter than the rug because that way it shows that that is higher up than the rug that's on the floor, right? Make the most sense. So now we have a little curtain that's going to separate this from the sleep space. We can also use, I think there's some that also have that are drawn. Let me see here. This one's like a tattered one. I wonder if there's one there where they're drawn or closed or opened. I don't see them in there, but that would be nice to kind of have that. Let me just check. Oh yeah, there's one right there, but I don't see a green one in there. And these are also, I don't know. Well, I gotta sneeze 1 second. Sorry. Excuse me. Wow. Dang. I think a drawn curtain might be more interesting actually than one that's not. That actually might be more interesting. So why don't we do that? So I'll go like this. That way you can kind of see the rod, and also I'll use the same continuity of the red one as well. And I think what I might also want to do is this just is super, it's getting smaller and smaller for the space. So I might do some adjustments, like maybe changing the width and then maybe changing a little bit of the height right here. And then I can go ahead and place that there. And now I have this like drawn like curtain, and that gives a sense of use, right? It's been drawn, it's been opened so that way the owner can go in and out with ease. And also it might not get in the way of your player's movement. If it's closed, then your piece is going to go through that curtain, right? But having an open one kind of makes more sense that you'll be able to walk through without it getting in the way. So I think that's always a nice touch, that right there. We could add a couple more details, like I think, what about pages from a book? They can be on the ground, maybe leading into the workshop. Like maybe a great environmental storytelling would be maybe the village has been poisoned by some bad guy. And so what you can do is maybe the herbalist is an important character for the story. You need to go to them. You're trying to find these ingredients and try to create an antidote before it's too late. So putting some notes, maybe some kind of erratic action, like having the notes on the floor, shows a sense of urgency. They ran around trying to quickly come up with some kind of solution or an antidote to that poison. We'll stick with that kind of idea. So I'll go with that. So some other things we might want to add are going to be like pages, or you can add paper. Sorry, well, paper or pakwer. I'm not sure what pakwer is, but that's fun. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and use these wizard notes right here. Oh, those are the old ones. There should be some newer ones in here somewhere. Let me take a look here. Maybe it's under notes instead of paper. My mistake. Let's try that. No, not those notes either. Is this a whip? It sure is. Let's see here. Let me type in paper again. I'll expand all assets here. I'm trying to remember which one works best. Oopsie. Expand all assets. Oops, did it not open it up? Oh, that's weird. Okay, I think we'll just use this wizard paper right here. This is fine. We'll go ahead and bring that brightness down a little bit so it's not super bright. And what I'll do is I'll make sure to put some paper below, like above the desk, like maybe below the book, maybe a smaller note off to the side right here. And then maybe I'll take some notes and put them underneath the table like this. That's going to make some sense, right? And then I can copy and paste and start creating a little trail that kind of leads in this way. Copy and paste. Maybe put it on the threshold. That would be a nice little thing there. So now you have that nice paper trail. It's going to create this sense of urgency. It's this mess. Otherwise, it would be put together. What I might want to also do is maybe throw in maybe like a mug of some kind. Maybe they're having a drink while they're putting together this. So we'll put that on top of there. A lot of things that we can do. On the other entry as well, that makes total sense. We can do that. That's not a problem. Good suggestion. Let's go ahead and copy and paste that piece. Make sure I don't have, which one am I selecting here? There we go. Copy and paste. And why don't we, just for a sense of contrast, why don't we have this one be a full drawn or full close or dang close, have it be different, so that way they're not the exact same, right? That creates some contrast. One is opened, one is a little bit more closed. That will look a little bit nicer. So I think that looks good. We'll put that there. Great suggestion, Tyke1N. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'll just say Tyke, hope you don't mind. Okay. I just want to add maybe just one more detail in the bedroom real quick. I want to add maybe some plants because it is a herbalist. So you would expect, a lot of plants and stuff in there. So I might want to maybe put like a bonsai tree that's just like hanging out on top of this right here. I might want to consider maybe adding in a small flower, a couple flowers here on this table right here. I might want to put some stuff on the bed, like maybe a couple like acorns. Just put a couple on the bed and then put a couple on the floor like this. This should help to kind of add details. These are on the floor, so we'll bring the brightness down on them. There we go. So now, and these are kind of equidistant from each other, so I should kind of do that a little bit better. There we go. Yep, hanging herbs, all of that stuff. We'll probably put the hanging herbs in the shop because this is the living space. But, because the living space and the shop are connected, it's okay to blend some of the shop stuff into. But for sure, we are going to absolutely do the hanging herbs. As long as it's not a whip, we can go ahead and add that in there. So I'll probably put those all along the walls. So we'll do that. Why don't we also put a stool? We'll go ahead and move into, I think in here looks fine. Why don't we move into the storefront? And I'm going to take all of the flowers and stuff that I see here. I'll type in flower and we'll go ahead and put all the flowers that we can on all the shelves. So just a bunch, like maybe we can take some purple pansies. I'll go look for a smaller one that will probably fit there. Let's put that on that shelf. Let's make sure that I got the layers right. There we go, some there. Let's go ahead and add in some of these yellow flowers over to here. That looks good. I'll add a little bit of lavender as well right here. And that's just the plant part. What about the concoctions that the herbalist is making? So why don't I go over to potions like this? And I think they're still 1.0. So we'll just use these ones. So I'll put a couple of potions in here. Why don't we go with a couple upright like this? Let's go with about 20. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of place a couple on the shelf. We'll put some red ones there. Why don't we put some green ones over here? And then we'll put some blue ones like over here. And then I can go look for some other ones, like maybe one that fell on the ground like this. Let's also put another one right here. Leaning, that looks good. And then there should be a couple other ones. That's also a whip. We'll have to wait. Let's go ahead and use this empty potion bottle. We'll put a couple on here like that. And then we should do the same thing here as well for this herbalist here. Because it's, I'm going to think about economy here. Because it is a small village, a lot of things are going to be done with barter. Unless the village is maybe like right outside of like a capital city where a lot of the food is grown. because that's usually how larger cities work. They'll incorporate smaller villages where the crop yields come from, and then that crop yield, a certain percentage, it's called a tithe, a grain tithe, will go over to like the capital city, wherever the Lord Liege lives. So kind of keep that in mind. But if it's a isolated village in the middle of nowhere, you know, it's really helpful. You don't need to use like a cash register. Instead, you can go ahead and just use regular barter. So this is up to you on which one you want to go with. I think that if it was a smaller village, kind of disconnected from a network of larger ones for a bigger city, you could probably just use barter, so there's no need for a register. I think I want to use the register, so I'll say that this village is part of a larger network, perhaps it's part of an empire. So I'll go ahead and maybe throw like a register on there for the coin. Put a register there. We'll put it like maybe off to the side here. Makes a lot of sense. If you put it dead center, then there's only going to be limited space on either side of it to put coin, to wrap the thing that they're buying, whatever it might be. So if you're going to put like a large stamp, like a register on your front table, I recommend putting it on the left or the right side. It really doesn't matter. I'll go ahead and put it on this side because what I'm noticing is that it's a little heavy on this side. So to balance out the room, because there's no stuff in this corner right here, a lot of stamps on this left side of the room. So to balance out the room, I'll put a stamp on this side here. I'll even kind of rotate a little bit so it looks like it's been moved around a little bit. And then a couple other details are going to be, if you type in like gold, because there is a register, expect some coin. So why don't we use this coin pouch? Why don't we go ahead and put a coin pouch there? That makes sense. We can put another pouch right here next to the other side of that register there. And then we can also put some flowers, boxes, whatever we want. So maybe we can put like a rose right on top of here. Maybe we can put maybe some nightshade right here. Maybe if they're making a poison of some kind, then maybe they would have some nightshade there. Let's also put a couple things on the shelves in the back, plants and concoctions. Why don't we make a purple colored one so that way we have some various colors, and maybe this is a rarer potion. That's why it's behind the shelf or behind the counter, right? Makes sense. So why don't we go ahead and throw some purple ones in here, and then that way that represents kind of a rarer plants behind that counter here, so they could walk around, look at the various wares. That makes the most sense. I'll go ahead and put one over there. Why don't we actually put that over here? I think that would look good. There we go. So that's there. So we have both ingredients and potions and tonics that they can buy from the herbalist. That makes the most sense. And I'll do that same thing when I go into this next room right here. What I'll do first is probably add some crates and barrels just like before, because I think you're also going to have like maybe someone ordered ingredients because it's not within the immediate area. So showing some crates, inside of these crates might be some ingredients in which are hard to access. They're not grown locally. Maybe it required trade to go ahead and get it shipped across seas. That way you can kind of create those more rarer tonics and potions and things like that. So we'll make sure to throw in some crates to make that clear. Again, make sure that the crates are varying sizes. Don't have them all be the exact same size. Crates are of all varying sizes, so that's kind of important. I think that adds that into there. Where are we at for time? 51, 2 hours. Ooh, it's a long one. We're going to go stick through it all the way to the end. We're going to go ahead and move into the next step here. We'll go into the next room. I think all the details in here look good, minus that floor painting, which we'll probably do. So inside the shop, there's going to be a whole bunch of things. We're going to find things like a mortar and pestle, if I can spell it right. So you've got a mortar and pestle. Let me see. This one's a whip. Those whips. Why don't we use the dwarven one because it's 2.0? A mortar and pestle makes sense. They're going to want to take those ingredients and then mash them up with the pestle within the mortar there. So it's going to make the most sense to have something like that. Why don't we also, they're going to be following instructions as they're putting everything together. So it makes sense to put maybe an open book and put a big one. So to show that it's a big ancient old tome. We'll go ahead and desaturate and bring that brightness down a little bit. We'll rotate it. Now you have this nice tome. We're also going to want to have things like knives or a knife. going to make a lot of sense. And we could use various types of knives. Let me go with expand all assets. And there should be a bunch of these tavern, various types of knives. So why don't we go ahead and put like a bunch on the table? Is my opacity down or is it just too small? Might be too small. Let's go with bringing the size just up a little bit more so that way they're not too blurry. So we're going to have a various knives and things like that. We'll flip one so they're not, the edge is not all facing the exact same way. And I'll also bring the layer down so that I can grab the shadow from the wall. That looks good. So we have some tools there. I think we can also use a rolling pin. I think a rolling pin might work. Here we go. We'll add in a rolling pin. This might be for like stretching out something. I don't know. I'm not sure what all the things that we would need. Oh, that's okay, Tang Whistle. It's a long stream. It's really long. So we'll make sure to time lapse a lot of portions of this. We'll probably end up just showing you the first one, and then we'll time lapse this second one. So that way that video is really, really short. That way it's easier to follow through. Okay, that looks good. I think most of the stuff in here looks good. With some other things that we want is a stool, probably at the workbench. And maybe there's another person there. Maybe you want to add, maybe this is also where they eat. And so it makes sense to maybe throw in maybe a couple stools when they're not eating. They go here to eat. Otherwise, where are they going to eat? In the bedroom, right? So maybe this acts as a dual function. It's where they eat and where they work as well. Makes a lot of sense there. When you're thinking about space and there's not a lot of rooms, we're not showing the first floor or anything like that. So, of course, we want to make sure that everything kind of functions properly. I think we could probably add just a couple like potions and things in the back, like finished works can go in there, like potions. We could put one maybe on top of right here, like that. We could probably move some crates into here. We could also put some shelving in here, like maybe I can put a shelf. Let's see, where can I put shelves at? No, that won't work. Why don't we throw in some firewood? We have some, let's put some firewood, a stack like right there. That makes a lot of sense. I should have done that in the other one as well. I normally do that, but I think I forgot about it. My mistake. That's great. We'll catch it in this one. Grab an axe for chopping the wood. Let me see the right one. Core 2.0. And then have that axe be kind of just leaning up against the wood just like that. There we go. That makes a lot of sense. There we go. That makes sense. And then I think the last bit of details is just probably throw a little bit more crates and barrels in here. We'll put them up against the wall. Copy and paste a smaller one against here. That might impede walking. So why don't actually I move this? Why don't I move a crate over to right here in this corner? That makes a lot of sense. And I'll put another crate over here like this. That makes a lot of sense. And then I can probably put a smaller one in this corner right here, just like that. That makes sense. And then just like before, I'll go ahead and grab a couple stuff from here as well. Like I can probably grab that and that. We want to make sure that we have pots. I think a good one to have would be something like a cauldron of some kind. Let me type in pot real quick. Let's get a big one, because this is where they're going to be like stewing it all together. So why don't we use this cauldron right here? That makes a lot of sense. I can go and put the cauldron either right here or close right here. It needs to be heated up. So let me think carefully about how I should put this together. Okay, I think we'll just put the pot right there for right now. That looks good. I'll bring that brightness down. It's on the ground. Remember that. There we go. That looks good. And then I can probably even put some smaller ones in here, like smaller pots with some other stuff. These smaller pots will be helpful. It's like they're storing stuff in them. They can eat or ground stuff that's already ground up. So why don't I put a couple along this wall here, just so that it's clear that there are some other stuff here. Let's go ahead and push this down a layer here. There we go. That looks good. Bring that brightness down. Same thing here. It's kind of getting in the way. Let's move it to right there. Make sure there's enough space. There we go. That looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty good. I'm okay with that. I think it's enough details. Why don't we add that ground texture? We're going to add light. And, oh yeah, potted plants as well. That makes total sense. Why don't we do that? I could actually remove a couple things. Like, why don't I... Let's see here. Let me look at this real quick. Why don't we already have a dresser right here. So we'll put a potted plant in this corner right here. That's a good choice. There's right at the entrance right here. Why don't we put 2 potted plants at the entrance? I'll show you how I would put those together. I would just use like a regular crate or a pot. It doesn't really matter which one you want to use. It doesn't really matter. I'll go ahead and use the crate because it's a little bit bigger, and if I'll be able to show some of the crate beneath it. So I'll add in a flower here, but you can do potted, crate, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. Type in flower. Good suggestion, by the way, McAnders. Appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Let's go ahead and put something pretty because this is going to be more aesthetic than perhaps like a practical plant that can be used. There are these like tropic lilies. We could put those on there. I'll put that right on top. Put another tropic lily right there. And what I'll also think I'll do is I'll bump up the saturation a little bit just so that it gets a little bit more color out of it. That looks good. And then I'll grab that crate again, and I'll go ahead and put a crate right here in that corner, and then I'll also grab another flower and put that there. Let's see here. What about this? Like, look at this one. That's a whip. I like that blue one a lot. You know, I do like this lily quite a bit. I think that's pretty. So maybe I'll look for the biggest one. There we go. Just put it right there. You can still see a little bit of the crate underneath of it. So that way it's a potted plant or some plant that has like a pot or something. So that way it doesn't look like it's just a flower growing out of the ground. That's why I'm using the crate. So it's just kind of clear. It's kind of easier to see. I also want to maybe take a couple of these pages and put them on the table as well. That makes a lot of sense. There you go. That looks good. Ooh, let's add another one like this underneath the table. There we go. That looks good. Bring the brightness a little bit. There we go. And I'll rotate it this way. There we go. Okay, this looks good. Yeah, great suggestion, by the way, McAnders. Appreciate that. Okay, let's get to a little bit of the texturing for the floor. That floor brush. Use that same texture. Bring that, pass it down a little bit. And I'm just going to paint a little bit on the floor. I'm going to try not to touch any of the stamps, but just a little bit on the floor just to kind of show a sense of movement. Things have been moving around a little bit. You can put here on the rug a little bit, just a little bit, just to create this sense of a movement a little bit. That looks good. Then we'll go over to the light source part. We'll go to light here. I'll just go ahead and just copy and paste some of these lights. One of the first lights you'll see will probably be by the doors. If the door is closed, then you'll have just a little bit of light at the base, just like that. If the door is wide open, obviously you would use a stronger light source. I'll put another light source right here. This door is also closed, so we'll just put a little bit of light coming underneath where the door is. That looks good. There's a fireplace right here. It makes sense that we go ahead and put a light source there. So I'll put in a couple. Let's grab a bigger one. Go ahead and place that right there. Place another one. Maybe I'll even put 2. There we go, just so we can get a little bit of extra light there. I'll bring the opacity up on this a little bit. Push that light source that way. That looks good. Now there's some very clear light coming from, and I can grab those same light sources, copy, paste, and move them right here to where that other fireplace is. That looks good. Okay. All right. And then from here, we can start doing those shadows. So that night filter mask, make sure that's the right one. I'm going to go ahead and paint just to make sure that the shadows look right. Let me just make sure that I have the opacity correct. Let me see here. Yep. Okay, cool. Want to make sure the shadows are consistent. Okay, and now we can just start painting in the shadows because we've established where the light sources is. So one thing you're going to notice right here, there's this light coming from right here. So expect some shadows to be right here where that table is. Don't forget to also put some shadows on this side where the light source is coming on that side of the bed to show a little bit of light coming from here. That makes sense. Paint a little bit of shadow in this corner here. The light is projecting outward. A little bit of shadow on this side of the flower. Same thing here. I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on this side facing away from the light source. Same thing here. There's a light source right here. I'm going to show the curtain's shadow right here. That makes sense. Okay, that looks good. We'll also make sure the shadow is correct here. That looks good. A little bit of a shadow on this side where this is, and I'll paint a little bit of a shadow right here just to make sure that that table kind of pops out. Don't forget the shadows coming from the book. And right there, those shadows work good. I think in here looks all right to me. Remember, you don't have to add a lot of hard shadows. it's probably closer to the middle of the day. Your shadows don't have to be nearly as pronounced, though you can do that. That's also just personal preference. We'll go to this next room. The light source is right here. So we're going to make sure that the light kind of emanates from there. So for starters here, we can start with the closest objects to the light source right here. We'll create the shadow on the stamp itself first. The shadow on this side projecting on there, and then don't forget the floor shadow as well. I usually start with putting the shadow on the stamp first, and then I'll create the shadow for the stamp next. I think I got it off a little bit. It should be a little bit more this way. That looks better. Same thing here. I'll put a little bit of, because this wood is stacked, I'll go ahead and put the shadow there. A little bit of shadow here. Right there. That makes sense. That looks good. And then because there's a light right here, I'll go ahead and create a shadow that goes like this. I'll paint the shadow. The whole thing will be painted in shadow here. Like this. There we go. There's no light source whatsoever in the stairwell tower. So let's go ahead and put the full shadow inside of that room. It's going to kind of make the most sense there. All right, let's keep moving. We'll go ahead and start adding the shadows. Again, I'm starting with all the shadows are closest to the light source. A little bit of shadow here, here. Let me just check where the light source is. The shadow would be right about there. Same thing here. There we go. That looks good. Don't worry about shadows for the paper unless the paper is curled up. Then you would show a little bit of a shadow. But if the paper, the note is flush with the table, then you probably don't need to paint a shadow. That just kind of keep that in mind. And then as for this one, I'll go ahead and just paint the whole table like this. Let's go ahead and bring the brush size up. It'll be a little bit more work. I'll just go ahead and paint the whole table. I can paint the underside, like where the legs are and stuff, in just a moment. For now, let me just get the light source. Get this right here. That looks good. Okay, that looks good. And to show a little bit of, which I think that should be enough right there. That's okay. That looks good. We'll go ahead and add the light sources here. Here, that looks good. Let's see, our light going this way. So I'll kind of create a little bit of shadow right here. That looks good. Okay, let me just take a step back and just see how it looks. Yep, shadowing looks good. We can always adjust it if we want it to be a little bit darker. If we want, I think there looks fine. We'll just continue adding a little bit more here. Let's say that there is a light source. Let's say that you wanted to show a light source that was hanging from the ceiling. This is a pretty easy one. Like maybe you had a chandelier of some kind. Just go ahead and take that light source and just place it at the very top. Let's say that there's a light hanging from the table, right above the table. Just go and put the light source right on top, just like this. What this will suggest that there's a light hanging. You don't have to show like a transparent chandelier or anything like that. Just put the light source just right on top, just to show where it's hanging. And now I have this nice light source, and every shadow can be emanating from that light source. So I can go in like this and then paint some shadows here. Like this, same thing here. I can paint in shadows, same things here, paint in shadows because of where that light source is. Same thing here. I can paint in my shadows. Here, don't forget to paint the shadows on the objects themselves. Like there would be shadow all along these right here. And because there's a light going directly down, you probably don't need to add a whole lot of shadow to that. I'll make sure to add shadows to here. Remember, it's just the shadows are always projecting away from the light source or being cast from the light source. Here we go, put a little bit of there. This looks good. Okay, let me go and just take a step back. There we go. I think overall that looks good. So here's what we ended up doing. It took us 2 hours, but we got it done. I kind of figured it usually takes about 1 hour. No matter, with most builds about this size, buildings usually take about an hour, at least when you're using this process. Obviously, I'm using a lot of shortcut keys, which really help. I recommend that you use the shortcut keys. You'll find the shortcut keys here if you click this button or press the K key. That's how a lot of it's not just process, it's also using shortcut keys. That also really speeds it up. So I recommend you go through all the shortcut keys. That will really help you speed it up. I'm just going to real quickly look at both of these real quick and just kind of see how they turned out. Like I really enjoyed the watermill. The mechanism is my favorite part. I think it makes a lot of sense. We put that together, and then we'll go down over here to the herbalist. One thing we didn't do was throw a bunch of raised beds out here. What I'll do is I'll probably just throw that in the time lapse because I don't really want to go for 3 hours. But out here, you'd put lots of raised beds. You could just use some kind of crate or elongated crate and just kind of place all of the stuff there. You can also just make your own raised bed with the shape tool as well. Super easy. Just use a wood stroke, dirt fill, add a little bit of shadow to the stroke, and then just put your flowers in a row right in there, just like that. Super easy. So we'll probably show that in the time lapse part, but I think you got the overall idea on the process, how I started out, the outer wall, inner wall, access. All those things need to come first before you start doing interior decorating. Once you've assigned all of those things, then you can start moving into interior decorating. Always start with the largest stamp first, so that way players can move around, and then from there you can add details, and then finally light and shadow. That's usually always the last thing that I do, because if you haven't finished adding the stamps, then you'll have to go back, add stamps, and then add shadows again. If you do shadows and light last, that way all the objects that the light and the shadows will interact with will already be there. So it's always kind of oh, I know, sorry, Silverclad. But you know what? You'll be able to watch it as soon as we finish it. It should be there on the Twitch. Feel free to rewatch. I'll also add it to YouTube. We're going to end up changing our YouTube schedule, like when I post it. So, and that way there's a little bit more consistency. I was kind of just posting right after doing a stream. This time I'll probably post it on the same day. That way there's consistency and people will always know when to expect the next stream instead of kind of hanging in limbo. It's kind of my fault there. I'll be doing a lot more organizing with the YouTube channel and stream, so they're a little bit more streamlined. All right, well, I think that's it. Thanks, everyone. This was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed putting this together. Interiors are so much fun. They're not as hard as you think. Remember, focus on function first. This is always going to help you. What is the room for? That will help you to decide the stamps to put in there on top of the environmental storytelling part, like what happened inside the room, not just what is the room for. Those are the two steps. In the function and then what happened in that room. That will determine a lot of the stamps that you put in there. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'll go ahead and finish this map in a time lapse. I'll go ahead and make this map clonable when I finish it. It'll probably take several days for me to finish it, but I'll make the map clonable. You'll be able to edit it, change it, do the things that you want. So that will be available. We'll have a time-lapse video for every single interior that I make. So for each one of these that I make, we'll have a video with an interior. I'll probably either add text or voiceover so that way you're not just watching and just looking at the UI and everything. You'll have some auditory explanation, voiceover to kind of help you guide it through. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buildings here. So there's going to be 7 whole time lapses that will be included. I'll include the whole stream as well in its full glory for those of you who prefer a long form, but I'll also turn this one into also a time lapse for those of you who prefer that format. Again, we're switching up the content to be shorter form. We're not erasing long form. We're just cutting it down a little bit to create more short form content. So that way you guys don't have to suffer through 2.5 hours for every single video that we produce. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. This was a lot of fun. Friday, we are going to be taking Typher Zero's map, and they're not, I don't know if they're here or not, but we're going to be taking their map, and I think we're going to be doing a map remake, or maybe it's depth. I can't remember, but I'm really looking forward to it because I really enjoy working on other people's maps. It's great to you get to showcase their maps and we get to have fun with it. Hey, there you are, Typher. Awesome. I'm looking forward to this Friday working on your map. This will be so much fun. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for sticking around for a extra long stream. Appreciate you all and your patience. I hope you're staying cool. I'll see you all on Friday. Okay. Take care. Please stay safe and healthy and stay cool. Bye, everybody.